Very warm welcome to everybody. A very, very good evening. Department of Psychology of Chikitsak Samuhas, SS and LS Patkar College of Arts and Science and BP Vardhe College of Commerce and Economics is very happy to welcome you all to this RUSA-sponsored national webinar on moving towards acceptance by a renowned psychiatrist, Dr. Manoj Bhatavdekar. What prompted us to organize this webinar was that due to this pandemic, the world has been struggling in dealing with healthcare, immense economic loss and slowdown and loss of employment. In face of these gripping pressing issues, little attention has been paid to mental well-being. Consequently, what has happened is anxiety, stress, fear, uncertainty, and even suicide have gripped us. And social distancing has ensured that we get little or no emotional support from each other. Accepting our situation and moving on seems to be the only solution and the only way to stay afloat in these trying times. In fact, in any trying times. Although that is easier said than done. Our speaker, Dr. Manoj Bhatavdekar, shall do exactly that. He shall take us today through the journey of self-acceptance. A very warm welcome to you, sir. We are eagerly looking forward to your address.
A very good evening to all of you. I am honored to introduce our speaker for the day, Dr. Manoj Bhatavdekar. He is an acclaimed psychiatrist with a gold medal from the University of Mumbai. He has had a distinguished career and has been awarded as the Best Resident Medical Officer at the KEM Hospital. He has also served as honorary psychiatrist and mental health advisor in various government and non-government organizations. Dr. Bhatavdekar has authored several books on child psychiatry in Marathi. His novel On the Life of an Adolescent with Juvenile Diabetes received the award for the Best Novel of the Year in 2001. He is actively involved in research, has published papers in scientific journals, and conduct programs for schools, colleges, and industries. Interestingly, Dr. Bhatavdekar is also a disciple of music and is a singer, composer, and lyricist. He is inclined towards spirituality too and is pursuing research on the benefits of spirituality. We are pleased to have such a multifaceted personality with us today and are eagerly waiting to hear your address. Once again, a very warm welcome, sir. I request you to address the audience.
Thank you very much, Neha, for your kind words of introduction. I'm so happy to be addressing such a beautiful August audience. I, at the outset, thank Patkar College, Vardhe College for having invited me to address this webinar today. I have been only talking since the lockdown began to different groups, to different audiences, and sometimes when I stop talking, I enter into my own silence, and my silence gives me many of the answers to my questions, to other people's questions. I sincerely thank Dr. Zareen Setna for inviting me today. She wanted to know how the format would be. I said I would prefer to have questions in advance so that let me get a feel of the needs of the audience, and accordingly I would address them, right? And she was kind enough to collate all the questions and send them to me. And very interesting questions I received. There are a lot of questions about how to deal with uncertainty, how to deal with anxiety, depression, and stress. And then people have expressed their guilt. Some people have expressed their over concern about contracting coronavirus infection and whatnot. Then there are people who are worried about economic difficulties in future and all that. As I said, I'm an expert in mental health. I'm not an expert on coronavirus. I'm not an expert on everything. my expertise is limited only to mental health. So I am, as far as possible, going to restrict myself only to mental health and whatever little I know. Yeah. You see, since the pandemic began, all that we are hearing is theories about the virus, the nature of the virus, how the virus spreads, measures to control the virus, measures to prevent infection, and everything that is pertaining to infection, so that, I mean, it is almost as if we feel that the entire atmosphere is infected, contaminated with the virus. Let me tell you one thing. This coronavirus is a very peculiar virus. It doesn't enter your house unless you invite it. It needs a proper formal invitation, like, you know. So it doesn't knock on the door, it doesn't enter your house unless you go close to it. And then people said, accept it. Then people said, move towards acceptance, adapt to it, make changes, and several things, right? People have been asking about how to deal with uncertainty. Tell me one thing. When was life certain? Even before this COVID crisis began, was there certainty in our life? No. But whatever uncertainty we had, we called it certainty because we were used to the uncertainty. We accepted our life with all the uncertainties which prevailed at that time. You agree with me? Therefore, it's important for us to acknowledge the fact that we human beings basically have immense capacity to adapt and to accept and to adjust to any given situation. Even before the coronavirus, even before the pandemic set in, we had several difficulties. We had day-to-day stresses. Maybe people who are living in cities, they had, say, for example, the stress of commuting, traveling, or maybe stress of meeting deadlines, or several kinds of stresses, right? Then there were economic difficulties as well. There were bomb blasts, there were terrorist attacks, and there were floods and natural disasters and whatnot. Several kinds of crises. And how did we cope with them? What is it within us that helps us to cope with a crisis? We have something called the PNEI axis, the psycho, neuro, endocrine, immune axis. Sounds complicated, right? It is complicated, but let me simplify it. Psycho refers to the mind, our thoughts, emotions, behavior. Neuro refers to the nervous system, the central nervous system, the peripheral nervous system, and the autonomic nervous system, right? Then the endocrine, E, all the hormones, the glands which produce hormones, and the immune system which fights diseases. Now, let me tell you one thing. All these four components, psycho, neuro, endocrine, immune components, they form an axis which works beautifully with our day-to-day functions. And all these four components are constantly in dialogue with each other every single moment. If I'm under stress because I'm going to miss my train, I feel anxious, stress hormones get released, So the endocrine system comes in. I start worrying now, how will I catch my train? That's the mind. The brain sends signals to my muscles. I run and I catch my train. And then everything is settled. So for every small stressful situation, the PNEI axis works for us every now and then 24/7. We do not know that such a system exists. We do not know how to trust this. We do not know how to nurture this system. We do not know how to be grateful to this system. So these are some of the things we will talk about today. This axis, let me tell you, is like a beautiful symphony playing. Several instruments together, several components. Every tiny cell of the body is involved. And it's working for us right from the time we were born. And it's going to work with us right till the end of our life. We do not trust our own body. We do not trust our own mind. We do not trust our own resources. So coming back to the point of uncertainty, when you say my life has now become very uncertain, what has become uncertain? If you ask this question to yourself, several questions will follow. Will my life become normal again? So again, what is normal? Normal again is a relative term, right? As I said, life was never certain. In fact, uncertainty is the only certain thing in our life. So go back to the pre-COVID days. There were insecurities, there were anxieties, which we accepted as part of our life. Now, the coronavirus has gripped the whole world, giving rise to several questions. The basic root of this uncertainty is that this virus is a novel coronavirus. It's new. We don't know what it looks like, or rather, we didn't know when it came what it looks like, how it replicates, how it attacks the body, and still there are theories and theories and theories and theories. I'm reminded of the story of an elephant who was examined by blind people. Each blind person touched one part of the elephant's body and said, describe the elephant according to their own perception. You know that story? And then there was a wise man who had eyes, and he said, look, everybody is right in their own way, but the elephant is the whole, constituted by all these components. So right now, let me tell you, nobody is able to look at the COVID crisis in a holistic manner. And that is the cause of insecurity. Number one. Secondly, it's a global pandemic. It's a very prolonged, protracted course. When will all this end? What do you want to end? Do you want uncertainty to end? Do you want the lockdown to end? If you want the lockdown to end, then you are inviting infection. If you want the infection to end, you don't know how to end it. So, finally, we are left with a feeling that probably there is no light at the end of the tunnel. But let me tell you, there is light at the end of every tunnel. Maybe this tunnel is very long. And that is what is coming in the way of our acceptance. Yeah. Now, an important thing here we need to understand is, when we are facing uncertainty, there are changes which happen inside us. The PNEI axis, the psychoneuroendocrine immune axis, starts working, and then there is anxiety created, there is tension created, there is stress created, there is frustration, there is anger, maybe there is guilt. We start bargaining. And finally, we kind of give up and we start feeling depressed and frustrated and end of wits kind of situation. Yeah. Remember, it is our own inner uncertainty that we need to deal with. We are not going to be able to deal with whatever that is happening outside us. We are not going to do anything about what the government is wanting to do or what the healthcare system is wanting to do, except blaming them. Our blame comes out of inner anger, inner frustration. We are blaming everything outside that's happening, right? So, the good news is that we can certainly deal with uncertainty that is happening inside, not outside. And why do I say that's good news? Because you can do something about it. And that's why I'm here with you today. So, what are the reactions that this pandemic has produced? Anxiety, as I said, there are lots of questions about anxiety. Somebody has, let me just go over the questions. Somebody said, it is, I feel so much worried about my relatives that, of relatives getting the infection, that it is difficult for me to keep checking. I keep checking and sanitizing and washing my hands and several things. And then there are arguments and there are fights at home because I'm anxious. Now, what is anxiety? Anxiety is nothing but fearful anticipation of future, right? An anxious mind always anticipates the worst. I have one person whom I know very closely. For the past 3 months, he has been chatting with me, calling me, saying that, Doctor, I have an immense fear that my family is going to be destroyed by this virus. And he's put on medication. He's put on therapy sessions, we give him relaxation sessions, but still the anxiety persists to some extent. And what does the anxious mind think of? The worst possible scenario. He keeps telling me, I'll get admitted, my wife will get admitted, my children will get admitted, my parents will get admitted, and then we will not see each other. So, anticipating the worst. He's absolutely hale and hearty. There are no comorbidities. Everything is fine with him. But he keeps getting anxious thoughts. The mind constantly is preoccupied with worries. And then there are physical symptoms of anxiety. There are palpitations, tremors, hyperacidity, headache, dryness of mouth, whatnot. What has happened here? You're preoccupied with a thought which generates so much of anxiety, so much of fearful anticipation of future, that the nervous system is now come into play. The endocrine system is releasing stress hormones, adrenaline, noradrenaline, cortisol, all these hormones are getting released, which give these physical symptoms. And not only that, then what happens is all your energy gets sucked only into dealing with what do I do with this situation? And the person is not able to concentrate. So how much of our energy we waste over useless thinking? Of course, I'm not blaming this person. He doesn't want to think this way. He's not deliberately doing it, but he is not able to accept the current situation. And he keeps telling me, doctor, please remove my fear. As if it's a tumor that you can operate and remove. How do you remove fear? The simple answer to this question is, how do you remove darkness out of a room? Can you throw darkness? You can't, right? So if you want to throw darkness out of a room, you need to bring in light. So we don't work with darkness, we work with light. So we work with the opposite of negative, that is positive. See, we don't work with the negative, we work with the positive. Similarly, fear is like darkness. You cannot remove fear out of your system. Fear has to be replaced with the opposites, the positives. And what are the positive opposites of fear? Trust, love, confidence, acceptance, correct correct positive actions, right? And when these things come in, fear disappears. Fear goes. How much time does it take for darkness to disappear when you switch on light? Just a moment, right? A fraction of a second. Suppose the room has been in dark for 100 years and you switch on the light. How much time does it take? Does it take 100 years for the room to light up? No. Still, it takes the same tiny fraction of a second. What does it mean? Whenever you get filled with trust, confidence, love, positive mental status, fear disappears that very moment. And the moment you are away from these things, fear comes back again. You understand this? So if you understand this paradigm well, you will understand how to work with the anxiety, how to deal with the anxiety inside. So we basically need to trust our PNEI axis, the psychoneuroendocrine immune axis. We need to trust that this system works well. Now, in order to nurture this PNEI axis, there are several things that have been advised. Regular sleep. You take care of the body. If you, in case, God forbid, you get infected, you need good immunity. And if you want good immunity, you need a healthy body, a healthy mind. Because the PNEI axis, the last component is the I, the immune axis, the immune system works best if the body mind are healthy together. So good sleep, good healthy food, regular meal times, regular physical exercise, regular relaxation activities, and being happy in general. Unfortunately, we hear a lot about taking vitamins and zinc and drinking kadas and homeopathic medicines. I'm not against them. Have them. But also learn to trust yourself. Also be happy. Also be active. Also be confident. And trust yourself. And trust life as a phenomenon. I mean, if you just chase a thought which tells you everything is going to be destroyed, the human race is going to be destroyed by this virus. No. Stop, realize that I'm chasing this thought. Realize that everything that is worst is not going to happen to me. Look back. Up until now, there are several things which have happened in your life and you have been able to cope with these crises. Some unexpected situations have arisen in your life, maybe small, maybe not as big as the global pandemic, but smaller situations, and you had your resources, right? So Go back and make a list of your resources. Okay, these are the resources that I have. Financial resources, human resource, materialistic resources, spiritual resources, different resources. So we all have resources in our life which we fall back upon. And we also have a tremendous reservoir of energy within us which is untapped. I'll give you an example. For example, suppose I have done 5 kilometers running, heavy exercise, and I come here and just relax back and then tell you, now you don't ask me to get up from my chair for at least half an hour. I'm tired, I'm exhausted, please don't ask me to get up. And then you just point your finger beneath my chair and you just tell me, there's a snake under your chair. What will I do? Will I still remain exhausted? Will I still be in a state of fatigue? I'll jump out of my skin and run for life, right? Where does this energy come from? It is there within us. This reservoir of energy we all have, which is untapped. So, such crises are times to fall back upon our own resources. And resources need to be strengthened. It's like um, a bank deposit. You keep on depositing money in the bank so that when it's time to withdraw, there is enough available. If the bank account is drained, it's drained. You run out of your resources. Similarly, when it comes to our resources, physical, psychological, we need to keep depositing some things in our resource bank. What are these resources? As I said, ultimately it comes to a healthy, normal lifestyle. How many of us during lockdown are following a good structured schedule? How many of us are taking adequate sleep? How many of us know what makes me anxious? For example, if watching terrible news on the television makes me anxious, all I need to do is switch off the TV. Then I'm not bothered about what's happening. I'll come to know. If there's something that's pertaining to me, I'll come to know. Where is the need to keep the TV on all the time? Where is the need to keep your WhatsApp messages on and keep forwarding horrible messages? Many of them being rumors. Can we not control that? At least if a rumor comes to you, you stop forwarding and you can send that's what I do. I send a message back to the person saying, this is a rumor, this is hoax, please stop circulating. And I don't send it forward. It's time to do these things. So identify your own sources of anxiety and avoid these sources. Stop, be away from these sources. And coming back to, if you want to, as I said, generate resources, strengthen or enrich your bank deposits of resources, then find moments to become happy. What is happiness again? Happiness is not a destination. It's a manner in which you travel, right? So, I mean, I'll do these things and finally I'll be happy. No, I can be happy this moment. In this very moment, how can I be happy? Now, let me tell you something scientific about happiness. A very important research that was carried out and is still being carried out. Sorry. There was a group of volunteers who was selected for this research and they were asked to visualize certain things. First of all, they were asked to visualize a happy moment and their functional MRI scan recording was done. Functional MRI is, you have heard of MRI scans of the brain? functional MRI records the electrical activity of the brain during certain states. So it just doesn't give you structure, it gives a functional image. So certain areas of the brain light up on the scan. So in happy moments, their functional MRI was recorded. Then they were given a break, neutral period. Again, then they were asked to remember, visualize being with their mother, to whom they felt immensely grateful. And again, their functional MRI scans were recorded. Then again, a break was given to them. And now they were asked to imagine being with a person whom they hate or resent thoroughly. And again, the functional MRI scans were recorded. Now, what did they find? Happiness, during happy moments, some areas of the brain lit up. During gratitude, during moments of gratitude, some areas of the brain lit up. And during moments of resentment, some areas of the brain lit up. And the surprising fact was that the happy picture of the brain and a grateful picture of the brain matched. And the resentment was completely a different picture. What does this mean? That the neurocircuitry of happiness and the neurocircuitry of gratitude is the same. So if you want to be happy, be grateful. So gratitude is a door to happiness. So if ever you want to be happy instantaneously, just close your eyes and look inward and look, oh, what can I be grateful for at this moment? And feel that gratitude, and within no time you'll start feeling happy. Simple to practice, easy to practice. We don't know this. And if you ask me, what can I be grateful for? The list is unending. Don't we have an unending list for complaints? If I ask you what is not there in your life, what is missing in your life, you'll give me a list of n number of complaints, right? So we complain, we blame, or we keep on giving excuses for not doing things, and that generates a lot of negativity. But if you really make a list of all the things that you have in your life for which you can be grateful, and every day just run over the list, close your eyes and say, oh, I am so thankful for all these things. If you feel thankful, if you feel grateful, a positive neurocircuitry starts operating. The PNEI axis starts depositing money in your resource bank. The bank gets strengthened. Your immunity becomes stronger and you feel happier. So previously, maybe I wasn't so enthusiastic about my exercise. Because I'm happy now, I want to exercise. Right? So a positive cycle can start with a simple thing like gratitude. It's very, very simple, very easy to practice. And if you're happy, you're confident, then you know, yeah, I can take care of these things. The coronavirus is outside, it's not inside. The virus is outside, fear is inside. And the fear is getting replaced by the opposites: trust, confidence, love, happiness, gratitude. Positive emotions are coming in. So bring in as many positive emotions as you can to replace your inner fear, your inner anxiety. And then you will realize that there is a way now. Yes, maybe the tunnel could be long, but it's a long journey, but it's my journey and I choose to be happy. So whether or not I see light at the end of the tunnel, here at least I see some light in my life, which is provided by my own happiness. And this is scientifically proved. So please remember, if you are struggling with uncertainty, stop struggling. Realize that you're struggling. Stop struggling. Bring in a positive state, and the negative state disappears. Another thing, when you're talking about uncertainty, anxiety, another very prominent, powerful negative emotion which can really, really suck your energy is sadness, depression. You know, when the lockdown began, we felt as if the coronavirus, no, it has nothing to do with me. When people started enjoying life, cooking dishes at home, spending happy moments together at home, all that. There was a lot of denial. Then you started hearing cases in outside circles. Now we are hearing cases close to us. Oh my God, this has almost come to my doorstep, as if. And then you hear sad stories, real stories, which make you feel sad. And on top of that, if you hear sad news, you start identifying with that news, you start feeling even sadder. The famous actor who unfortunately committed suicide, right? What happened after that? Let me tell you, I'm a practicing psychiatrist and I received several phone calls from all age groups, youngsters, of course, more in number, fans of that person who committed suicide. That if he can do it, why not me? Even in one of the questions that I have received from Dr. Zareen, there's a question which says, if I continue to feel anxious, will I also commit suicide? My instant response is no way. Nobody will commit suicide. Life is precious. Number one. Secondly, we do not, and then there are analyses of why he committed suicide, leave his story. We have nothing to do with anybody else's life. If you are feeling sad, it's your responsibility to look inward and deal with it. Unfortunately, we identify with a lot of celebrities. We keep them as our role models, which in a way is okay at an age, young age, it's okay. But remember, people who commit suicide are not cowards, they're not mentally well. So it's a possibility that he was mentally ill, or anybody who commits suicide. I'm not talking about him. A person who commits suicide is mentally not well and he needs help, and help is available. The commonest cause of suicide is depression, and depression is a medical disorder. World Health Organization has put depression as the second largest problem after heart disease. This was before the COVID came, right? Now, if it's that big a problem, we need to understand what depression is all about, right? We feel sad sometimes. Okay, I had planned something, it didn't happen, and I feel sad. That's not depression. Depression is a persistent mood of sadness. And when it's a disorder, normally there are physical symptoms as well. There's loss of sleep, loss of appetite, lack of confidence, lack of concentration. Maybe the person feels like crying excessively, feels helpless, hopeless, worthless. And this is caused by some biochemical disturbances in the nervous system. The PNEI axis, the N neurological component. This is the nervous system which has some chemicals like serotonin. There are imbalances happening in your neurotransmitter chemical system which produces anxiety, which produces depression. And when this happens, the person is not aware of why it is happening to him or her. And then the person starts repenting. Have I done something bad? Have I done something wrong? Why is this happening to me? Why am I being punished? In one of the questions, there is some person who's expressed a lot of guilt. So the person might feel guilty for having done something wrong. And when depression sets in, then the person's overall efficiency goes down, the performance goes down, and then these thoughts start percolating. If my life is not going to improve, what is the point in living? I would better be dead than living. That's how suicidal ideas begin. So if somebody is harboring severe ideas of sadness, if they are intense, they are pervasive, affecting several areas of your life, they're persistent, constant, and they interfere with the quality of your life, then it is necessary that you seek professional help for depression. Do not suffer. Professional help is available, and please seek a psychiatrist's help. Any psychiatrist from anywhere in your local area, please contact that person and seek professional help. Do not suffer. Do not move towards suicide. We want to come back to life, right? We are talking about moving towards acceptance. We are talking about moving towards happiness. We're talking about being centered where you are. And we are talking about coming back, resilience, coming back with at least the same amount of energy that we had before the crisis, right? So, what am I trying to tell you here? Anxiety and depression are very significant hampering, hindering factors which can affect our life. And these negative feelings then give rise to the feeling of uncertainty, constant turmoil, unrest, which we keep experiencing inside. If you take care of your body mind, the body will take care of the virus in case you are infected. You won't even know. So there are several asymptomatic patients, right? In asymptomatic persons, they don't manifest any disease. As against that, there are several people with comorbidities, some other physical illnesses, and they succumb. What does it mean? Life is precious, health is precious, and by health, I do not mean only physical health, I also mean psychological health, mental health. And if you want to preserve a good body mind status and nurture your PNEI axis and keep depositing money, the resources that I talked about in your bank of resources, your resources will get strengthened, your PNEI axis will get stronger, and you will come back with good resilience. Now, talking about the word acceptance itself, everybody says, oh no, accept it, accept it. Sounds very easy. What is acceptance? Is it the same thing as tolerance? No. Tolerance is you're stretching, you're stretching, you're suppressing, you're suppressing, you're stretching, and finally it gives way. I've come to the end of my tolerance, I've come to the end of my patience, is what you say, right? You never say, I've come to the end of my acceptance. There's no such phrase. Because if you accept not partly, you accept totally. You accept it wholly. I'll give you my own example. I have my clinic and I was used to sitting across the table with my patients. and I was very happy doing that. With this lockdown, the area in which I live is a red zone. So there's no question of running the clinic. My receptionist lives far off. She cannot travel. So there's no point going to the clinic, collecting people in the waiting room with these rules of social distancing. It's just not possible. So I had to close my clinic and start video consultations, which is a totally new concept. I can talk, I can listen, I can see, but I cannot physically examine the patient. If there is a neurological issue with the patient or some pains, I cannot touch that patient over the video. That's a big limitation, right? What did I do? I accepted it. When I say accepted it, I didn't fight with it. I accepted this whole business of video consultation with all its limitations, but there are strengths as well. There are bedridden elderly patients who cannot come to the clinic. I can, through my video, I can have a look at them while they are in their own houses. Right? I can see the entire family together. I can have a look at their functioning. So there are advantages and disadvantages of everything. Everything is a package. So by acceptance, I mean take it as a package, the whole thing. Don't select. I like this, so I accept that. No, acceptance is not partial. If you accept partially, that means you're rejecting a part of it somewhere subconsciously. And that subconscious denial keeps operating from inside. If I had not accepted the fact that physical examination is not possible, all I would be struggling with every patient is, oh, but I didn't do his physical examination. I hope his heart is normal. I hope his blood pressure is normal. I hope this is normal. I hope that is normal. And I would be troubling myself. So I made arrangements for their physical examination to be carried out with some physicians who are working. And I know that this person's blood pressure is normal, for example. So this is acceptance and adaptation. So you adapt. We need to drop so many non-essential things in our life when you accept. Haven't we dropped going out and eating? Haven't we dropped malls from our life? Haven't we dropped so many things which we thought were so essential? Right? I mean, my air conditioner stopped working. Till it stopped working, I felt it was a necessity. And when it stopped working, I realized, oh my God, now there's nobody to repair because there's no worker available. Then air conditioning is not a necessity. You understand? We attach so much importance to so many things in our life which are really non-essential. Then what is ultimately essential in life? What is essential? Emotional bonding, being together emotionally. Social distancing is a rule. There's no rule for emotion. There's no emotional distancing. The distancing is physical. I am connecting with you through this camera. I'm not able to see everybody, but I can feel that you all are with me, right? Why is that happening? Because there is an emotional bonding which exists amongst us. We human beings are connected. So if you feel connected, that helps. So what is important is realize what is essential in life. And then you will come to a conclusion that there are very few things which are absolutely essential. The rest you can drop happily and live a happy life. I've heard this story when uh, Edmund Hillary and Sherpa Tenzing, when they climbed Mount Everest for the first time in the world, towards the summit, Hillary dropped his baggage. He even dropped his camera. So before reaching the summit, all that was necessary, but near the summit, all that was non-essential. So drop all that is non-essential. Realize, okay, I can do with this, do without this. So let me drop it. It's not essential. And we actually, if you hindsight, if you just take a look back in your life, in the past 3-4 months of lockdown, we have dropped so many non-essential things. We have coped a lot. We have been dealing with so many uncertainties, insecurities within us, and we have succeeded in dealing with them. Yes or no? You will agree with me. So, in other words, when you are emotionally connected, you can talk, you can listen with empathy, giving, listening. These are good qualities which we need to nurture during such times. If you really feel connected, again, you will have a feeling that, oh, so many people are with me. And then you will feel grateful to these people and you will feel happy also. Correct? So, if you are able to connect with people, if you are able to help people, if you are able to give to the world what you have, that will take care of a lot of the insecurity that you have. Because then, when you give and take, there is a bond of love that is created, which is unconditional. And love is again an antidote to fear. We just said, no, what are the antidotes to fear? One of them was love. So when love comes in, fear goes. So practice small things. I'm not talking big theories. I'm not a guru or a baba or anything. I'm just telling you some small experiences from my own life and people's lives whom I have seen. And these things, they work. So if you want to deal with uncertainty, if you want to move towards acceptance, stop fighting. When I say stop fighting, I mean let go. And when I say let go, I don't mean give up. The two things are completely different. You give up out of frustration, you let go out of acceptance. Oh, this is beyond my control right now. So let me not fight with it. Let me not keep preoccupied with thoughts about this. Let me deal with this later. I am not equipped to deal with this right now. Something maybe beyond me, something which is higher than me is probably controlling this. I don't need to control this. That is letting go. And letting go is such a relief. And surrender to the situation. By surrender, I don't mean get defeated. See, we are constantly talking about winning and losing, victory and defeat. These are situations which belong to the marketplace, business, competition, achievement. We are talking about our own inner world. Who are you winning over? Who are you fighting? When you start fighting or struggling, it's like your left hand fighting with your right hand, which is ridiculous, right? So stop fighting. Completely let go and relax back. And then you will realize there are several things I can do. I can trust myself. I can trust my resources. I can be grateful. I can plan my day. I choose to spend my day in a particular manner. I choose to spend my money in a particular manner. And whatever my resources, I keep replenishing them and using them, and I am happy. If this much you're able to do, and remember one thing, if it is too bad, if it's too overwhelming, if it is persistent, pervasive, interfering, seek professional help. Don't hesitate. Talk to somebody. Open up. Open up to somebody whom you confide in. Open up to somebody whom, and a mental health professional is an ideal person in this regard. So, this is a journey, there is no destiny. Don't look at a destination. Make the journey happy, make a journey comfortable, happy. And then when you reach, whenever you reach, wherever you reach, you'll be happy because the journey has been happy. Okay. A few questions which had come, let me address. Let me see if I have skipped any questions. Yeah, somebody is feeling guilty of taking a big salary while not really doing much productive work. Okay. See, there's no reason to feel guilty, number one. Secondly, what you could do is, remember, if you're taking a big salary, that's not because you're not doing productive work. That's because you're capable of doing productive work. So when you get an opportunity to do productive work, you can work productively. Okay. There's no need to feel guilty. Somebody has said, I've noticed that I often argue with my wife. That's normal, right? Arguing with your wife and husband is pretty normal. There's nothing abnormal about it. But if it is getting too much, this is happening also because probably you have been in direct contact with each other for a long time because of the lockdown situation. So take a break for a little while. Be silent within. Do your own stuff. Don't interfere with each other's. Don't encroach on each other's personal space. By which don't mean physical space. I mean personal psychological space. Don't nag. Don't interfere. Don't complain. Don't point faults. Instead, appreciate, compliment, thank. If you can't do any of these things, at least keep quiet. Right? So that much at least I'm sure you can do. I spend more time on internet searching for preventive measures of COVID. Basic precautions, if you are taking, you're doing your best. No need to go on internet and search. Several theories you will find, several explanations which contradict each other, which create a lot of controversy in your mind. Stop doing that. Basic social distancing, wearing a mask, respiratory etiquettes, sanitizing, washing your hands, taking care of your lifestyle, doing exercise, doing relaxation, staying happy, and being emotionally connected with each other. Enough. Nothing more is needed, right? Those who are taking care of the healthcare system are taking care of it. Administrative people are taking care of the administrative decisions. Please do not poke your nose into their affairs. That's what we do. I mean, I have, for example, somebody who has never known how to treat a patient, who is not a doctor, still they comment on how doctors should treat a patient, right? Somebody who has never been into politics has every political advice to give. Somebody who has never played cricket has advice for every cricketer who in a match that you see. So this is human tendency. Advice is the worst vice. Remember that. Stop giving advices, stop blaming, stop complaining. Anything that finally gives you negativity and leaves you in a negative state of mind, keep away, keep off. And everything that makes you happy, go after it, be with it. Pursue your hobbies, give some time, spend your time with your pets, with your children, with loved ones. Talk to people whom you like. Stop doing all that is non-essential, as I said, and then you will be happy. So if you want to move towards acceptance, please do not think you have to move towards acceptance from now. We already are moving towards acceptance, all of us, in our own way. So compliment yourself. Okay? Nobody is going to do that to you. You need to do that to yourself. So you are the most important person in your life, in the sense that you have your choices. Stop being reactive, be proactive. By which I mean, don't say I have to do this, I have to do that. Please say I want to do this, I need to do this, I choose to do this. And use your choices and be with your choices. I can go on talking, but I have complete respect for your patience and your tolerance, and now I'm talking about acceptance, but I don't want to try your patience anymore. I'm sure this is in a nutshell what I wanted to share with you. Thank you again for inviting me. Um Such interactions online also are helping people. Did we ever think that, did we ever imagine that instead of listening to a speaker like this, we would be listening online? But we are doing it. So we have moved towards acceptance. Congratulations to everybody on this. And my sincere thanks to the Institute, Dr. Zarin Setna, Principal Sahib, all the respected teachers, dignitaries, and young students, and whoever is part of this audience, my sincere thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Bhatavadekar, for this brilliant session. There are many compliments and positive comments that have been written down in the chat box. People were really able to connect and relate to what you were trying to say. There's so much positivity here, which is really needed in these difficult times. So there are many questions that were coming up on stress and anxiety, which you have addressed in your talk. There is one question by Ms. Malvika Anand, who asks how to deal with procrastination.
Okay, my answer is whose procrastination? Whose procrastination? If I am procrastinating, the answer lies with me, right? The question sounds as if it belongs to somebody else.
Okay.
If I am procrastinating, I need to understand I'm procrastinating. And by procrastinating, see, this is a word. What do I mean when I say I'm procrastinating? It's simple, that I am postponing things. What do I mean when I say I postpone things? I am not doing it when it's supposed to be done. So if I start doing, so select a few things maybe you start with. Don't get into theories and words and jargon. I want to do this task today. Simple. And do it. And compliment yourself and say, oh, today with respect to this task, I did not procrastinate. Otherwise, you're led to believe that I am a procrastinator. There's nothing like that. So focus on action, not on thoughts.
Thank you, sir. So before we move towards a vote of thanks, would you like to do a small activity with our participants?
Oh yeah, why not? A small brief activity can be, yeah.
I'm so sorry to interrupt, sir. There was a very pertinent question asked that why is it considered taboo? Why is it stigmatized going to a mental health professional? This needs to be addressed, sir. If you could please.
Yes. Okay, yeah, sure. Very important question. Why is it considered a taboo? Mental illness, unfortunately, has been equated with madness. And the word madness has a stigma. So if I'm going to a psychiatrist, if I go to a cardiologist, that's prestige because I have a heart and I have a heart disease. If I go to a psychiatrist, that's a taboo because I have a mental illness. Let me tell you, modern psychiatry does not even call it mental illness in the sense that it used to call earlier. Lots of biochemical theories of mental disorders have come into vogue, and now we understand the functioning of the brain as against the mind. So these are actually physiological functional disorders of the nervous system. So a psychiatrist is not a pagalon ka doctor. You understand what I'm saying? It's not a doctor of lunatics anymore. Lots of research is going on in psychiatry. Lots of modern medicines have come. Lots of newer psychotherapies have come. Behavior therapies have come. And we are getting in the 20th century, 21st century, we are getting excellent results. Before 1952, there was no psychotropic medicine available. And that's why the fate of severely mentally ill was only mental asylums. But with the discovery of chlorpromazine in 1952, there has been a revolutionary change in the scenario of psychiatry. And now we are in 2020. Come on. People seek help for normal day-to-day stresses as well, for minor anxiety depressions as well. I strongly and sincerely advocate that if somebody is suffering with a mental illness, he has no business to suffer. He doesn't deserve suffering. And psychiatry offers answers to this suffering. I hope I've answered the question. So thank you once again for allowing me this opportunity to interact with all of you. I didn't feel the barrier of the screen. That's credit to such a lively, lovely audience. And I thank Patkar and Vardhe College again, Dr. Zareen, and what a beautifully organized program. Thank you so much.
What a beautiful experience it has been listening to you, Dr. Manoj Bhatodekar. It was indeed an evening very well spent. On behalf of the Department of Psychology, I extend gratitude to our speaker for this delightful lecture, which is so much the need of the hour. I must tell everybody, Sir has been most cooperative, promptly responding to all our numerous requests and queries. We learnt one very important lesson while working with Sir. Humility is a true sign of an extraordinary human being. I am also thankful to the management of Patkar Vardhe College for providing us with this platform and opportunity. Thank you so much, Dr. Mala Kharkar, our Chief Education Officer, for gracing the occasion. I am grateful to our Principal, Dr. Shrikant Sawant, our Vice Principals, Dr. Aarti Sawant, Dr. Ramesh Shamgar, and Mr. Nivrutti Kumbar for all the help they have extended to us. We are delighted to inform that we were amongst our participants, we had our ex-principal, Dr. Sharmishta Matkar, and also some of the members, honorable members of the Board of Studies of Psychology. Thank you so much. We are honored and grateful to have you with us. IQAC of our college has stood by us, providing us with guidance and support at each stage. Dr. Ramesh Shamgar, our Vice Principal and IQAC Coordinator, please accept our sincere thanks. I am grateful to Mr. Sopan Adhav, IQAC member and my colleague, for willingly extending assistance and valuable insights. Organizing an online event of this scale can be a daunting task. My organizing committee comprised of my dedicated team of my dear alumni, Soham Chachar, Neha Matre and Pooja Ashok Kumar. They have stood by me in the last few days, going through numerous drafts and patiently bearing all my panic attacks. They have provided immense technical support in designing the brochures, Google Forms, certificates, and also in conducting this hassle-free, hitch-free session that we just enjoyed. They are indeed the backbone of today's program. 3 cheers for them. Thank you very much, my team. I'm very proud of you. And finally, a very big thank you to all our enthusiastic participants. We are grateful for all the wonderful comments that you have filled the chat box with. All our teacher colleagues from the teaching fraternity, our mental health professionals, and all our students. Thank you very much for being with us. Have a very happy weekend, everyone. Stay home, stay safe. Bye.